A colleague of mine sent me some very disturbing clips from a college professor talking to another friend or colleague of his about how he has advocated for 20 years in his classes adult child sex. This is shocking. On the other hand, it's not shocking. In fact, in my book, A Queer Thing Happened to America, I have a whole chapter on this. The arguments for, No, you're talking about kidnapping a 2-year-old child and raping them. They're not going that far, but they are advocating the benefits, the positivity of it. And as you'll see, even under coercion. Okay, let's listen to the first clip.
Still the adult child sex. That's always a big seller.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I had good friends who said, "Are you crazy? Do not write that book."
Man, listen, you're talking to a guy who for 25 years has been making arguments more or less in defense of adult child sex in classrooms. And I don't know if it's the same argument as yours, but I even authored a piece in the Daily Beast in which I called into question the age of consent laws. Which is, and I brought to bear the arguments I was making in class, and I'm going to see whether they jive.
Laughing about it, right? So it's the other professor who said he's been doing this 25 years. The adult child sex. Have they lost their minds? Oh, but it gets worse. Let's listen to Professor Kirshner.
Right.
Because this seems to be like a paradigm case. There's actually some meta studies which seem to suggest that in some cases, at least with regard to adult males and underage males, that it's not harmful, or if it is harmful, we can't decide whether the harm is due to the sex itself or the fact that society goes berserk over it. And so one of the articles I was reading said, look, this is wrong. We don't need to know whether it's harmful. The empirical question of whether or not there's any long-term harm we can track on this is really beside the point. And I was kind of struck with the question. I thought, well, it's not obvious to me why that is. Right? I mean, the standard kind of other argument is that it's a right infringement. And I wasn't sort of convinced by that argument. And also when it comes to hebephilia rather than sort of adult child sex, so sex with like young teens, it's not clear to me. I mean, look, there's at least some reason to believe that that individuals are, designed by evolution to begin reproduction at that period. So if they're designed by evolution to begin reproduction, it's not clear why it would be physically either harmful or emotionally harmful. And so there was kind of like 3 different explanations, none of which convinced me.
So they're actually talking about adult child sex, okay? Not a 30-year-old man having sexual relations with a 17-year-old man. They're actually talking about adult child sex. And then, maybe here's a 40-year-old guy with a 15-year-old or something like that. And here, again, in A Queer Thing Happened to America, and we may just publish the pedophilia chapter by itself, all right? But in that, we have these people advocating. One guy was even a parliamentarian in the Netherlands. And he was known for sleeping with boys. And they said, there were kids who were troubled kids, and they'd be in and out of these homes for troubled kids. And then when the men started sleeping with these teenage boys, that's when they got better. And then you have these famous gay activists. I mean, some of the most famous names out there from past generation. And they would say, oh, yeah, I had a mentoring relationship and it really helped me. And that's when I started to find the self-affirmation when, 30-year-old man started having sex with me when I was 12. I mean, these arguments are being made. What about NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association? They used to march in the early gay pride parades. So this is insanity. And the university, as it's come out, so this is not who we are and not where we stand. And I would imagine there'll be severe repercussions. But it gets worse. It gets worse if you can imagine this. And these are some professors in some of our universities. Listen to the last clip.
The right infringement case that we don't get, they can't give their valid consent, and therefore it's wrong in virtue of being a right infringement. And there's a view that it's exploitative, that even if it's not harmful, even if it's not a right infringement, it's somehow an exploitation.
Right. I've heard all these. Yes. Okay.
Right. So those are the 3 dominant arguments. And none of these convince me. So me neither. The harm argument, well, there's actual empirical controversy over this.
Sure. Yeah.
On the rights-based argument, I think, look, we make children do all sorts of things that we don't want to do. Right?
Thank you.
You know,
God.
we make them go to church. We make them go to the temple. We tell them to go to school. They got to go to the dentist. They got to go to their sister's ballet recital. And we don't care what they say. And they want to do things. We say no, right? They say, I want to stay up and watch, Creature Feature on WPIX until, 2 in the morning. We say, well, it's tough.
That is all a child's life is coercion.
Right, that's right.
Is coercion by adults often to make the child do something for the adult's pleasure only.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You say, you're going to go to your great uncle's funeral, even though you want to go, and even though it's not in your interest.
Right.
So the rights-based argument's a little bit hard to follow.
May the Lord have mercy on these men and save them and bring them to repentance and stop them from spreading such absolute perversion. And who knows how many people may have sat in their classes that already had a weakness or a predisposition or a pull to children and went out and acted on it. Only God knows. But you hear the monstrous evil of this argument? You tell your kid, you have to brush your teeth. I don't want, you have to brush your teeth. You have to make your bed. I don't want to make bed. You have to make your bed. Oh, look, grandpa died. We're going to the funeral. I don't want to go to the funeral. You have to go to the funeral. Okay, now we're going to have sex with you. I don't know what we're going to do. How in the world can anyone possibly compare these things? And yet this is what these university professors are doing. Maybe you beat the child because you get sexual pleasure out of beating the child. That's so, hey, it's for the pleasure of the adult. What monstrous evil. Even if they try to couch things and explain things other ways, the fact that they could even say these words, monstrous evil. By the way, when you look at Professor Kirshner's academic bio and you go to that site and look at it and see some of the things he teaches, pro-abortion and then, things mocking hell, etc. May God have mercy and may God expose this monstrous evil where adult child sex is practiced, advocated. There's an epidemic of child porn, all these victims. It's amazing that God has not wiped out the planet because of this. May God have mercy, and may the universities wake up to some of the junk and trash being taught in their own midst. Hey, friends, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, click on one of the boxes on the screen, check out another one of our videos, and be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. We discovered that about 60% of you that are watching our videos aren't subscribers. So subscribe today. Doesn't cost you a dime. And if you want to support our work, Line of Fire, and all the things that we do, follow one of the links on the screen below.